Hi guys, so I think it's time to do another EV update. So let's head over to the electrified fast lane, or maybe it's the slow lane. Well, it depends on your perspective, I guess, at the moment and who you ask. Now, obviously, as we know, the UK government's ambitious zero emission vehicle mandate, the ZEV mandate, required EV sales to hit 22% in 2024, but we have fallen short. Um, and then the ban that Rishi Sunak had put back on the sale of new petrol and diesel cars, well, Labour did say that they would reverse that when they got into power. And they've literally just done that as well. So what does all this mean for the so-called EV revolution? Um, is this going to kill off what is left of the UK car industry, for example? Will any more of you start buying EVs, particularly with some of the latest breakthroughs in battery tech and charging infrastructure, which I'll go into later in this video? Well, let's see. Let's get into it. Let's do that right after this.
A brown car guy. Brown car guy.
So last year in the UK in 2024, we hit a sales record of 382,000 EVs sold in 2024. And that means that total new car total new car market share for EVs was an impressive 19.6%, which is about 1% more than what was widely predicted, which most people thought we were going to hit about 18.5%. So 19.6% doesn't seem so bad, particularly when you think about the fact that in 2023, the market share was 16.5%. So we're talking nearly a 3% increase, right? So that does sound good for EV sales, a steady growth, a growing take up for electric cars. The problem is that the government wanted 22% in 2024 under the, like I said, the zero emission vehicle mandate, the ZEV mandate for short, which is also known as the vehicle emissions trading scheme. And the bad news for car companies is that falling short means potentially hefty fines for them, up to £15,000 per non-compliant vehicle. Now, I think that there was a period of stay of execution, if you like, initially, and also there is a trading scheme where they can buy and sell credits so that they don't immediately have to pay the fines. But at some point, this is going to catch up with them, especially as these shares, these percentage shares, start to increase. So having said that, like I said, 3% increase in share between 23 and 2024 does seem reasonable. It's still 2.5% short of what the target was, which was 22%. But in 2025, the target jumps to 28%. So basically, from that current 19.5 or 19.6%, I should say, up to 28%. You're looking at finding a staggering 8% jump in market share. And of course, that means increased EV sales in this year, 2025. Now, given that we're already behind, how realistic is that? I mean, not very. The government knows this, I think, which is why they're reviewing the ZEV mandate, which is currently happening. In fact, there is a consultation online at the moment, which you should probably get involved in. I'll put the link somewhere above below, you'll find it. And I think I'm probably going to do a video on it as well, so stay tuned for that. And of course, this happened after several car companies, including Nissan and of course the giant Stellantis, which of course runs, Fiat, Citroën, Peugeot, etc., Vauxhall. They all went to the government, and one assumes that they warned the government of the consequences of enforcing the ZEV mandate percentages, which increase every year. So 28% this year, and then of course increases again next year. What impact that could have on the car industry as a whole. And don't forget, even for those skeptics that say, well, what car industry? I mean, don't forget, we're still talking a £70 billion industry here in the UK, employs nearly 1 million people and contributes £20 billion to the Treasury. But of course, that doesn't bode well when you think about the fact that Labour have already brought that deadline for the sale or the banning of sale of brand new petrol and diesel cars, which was originally 2030. Rishi had pushed it back to 2035. They've brought it back to 2030 now. Now, I should just say that, to be fair, even though Rishi Sunak had pushed it to 2035, in real terms, it didn't actually make a lot of difference either way, whether it's 2030 or 2035, because going back to the ZEV mandate, if you look at the percentages as they grow, as they've been stipulated at the moment, in either case, it had said that by 2030, 80% of all cars sold must be electric. Now you're thinking that, well, if there's a ban in 2030, then why is it still only 80%, not 100%? Well, because they said 80% of all cars must be electric, plus there was an allowance of 20% for hybrid cars, and one assumes that means plug-in hybrid cars. Now, that never changed. So that was always 80% for 2030. And even when Rishi Sunak put it to 2035, it was still 80% for 2030. And of course, with the change, one assumes that it's still the same now. Of course, that is dependent on the consultation that is currently happening. Having said that, Labour's announcement now about confirming that they're going to bring that deadline back to 2030 does, of course, continue to create uncertainty for car companies and for car buyers as well, doesn't it? You know, on the one hand, it could push car makers to double down on EV production, which, to be honest, they have been doing because they know that there's a cutoff coming. But then, you know, at the same time, the industry's been crying out for consistency, and this back and forth, these changing of dates and things like that, none of this really helps. And then, of course, we have to consider car buyers, you guys. I mean, the fact is that private car buyers, when it comes to EVs, they're dragging their feet. There's only about 10% of them are actually going electric compared to all the others, which are going to fleets and corporate companies and stuff like that. Why is this happening? Well, high prices, limited charging infrastructure, a general meh attitude from the public, which, you know, to be fair, with prices, they are now coming down. You have things like the Renault 5 E-Tech, which is coming in about £22,000, which for a car like that, which is a really attractive little car, that's actually a really, really good price. And then the cars themselves are getting better, they're getting more interesting, they're getting more exciting. You have legacy companies like BMW and MG, which are putting out cars like the i4 M50, one of my favorite drivers' cars, and the Cyberster, which I haven't yet driven, but I really like to look at. That's BMW and MG respectively. And then there's companies like BYD, which are absolutely killing it right now and have overtaken Tesla in the electrified sector. Plus, you know, there's future battery tech is promising, and the infrastructure itself is growing, which I'll also come back to in a minute. And now let's zoom out a little bit and look at the bigger picture, because the EV story isn't just a UK thing. Globally, the race for EV dominance is heating up, and guess who's leading the pack? China. China is not just the biggest EV producer in the world. In fact, 70% of all EVs sold in the world last year were from China. But they're also pushing hard and fast with innovation and development in the EV technology, and particularly battery technology. Although Japan and Korea are also making huge strides in the area of battery tech. Hey, are you enjoying this video? Then make sure you hit the like button. It's very important. Plus, comment, share, and make sure you're subscribing. Researchers are making breakthroughs that could change the game entirely. A team has developed single crystal electrodes, which could make EV batteries last for millions of miles. This will put paid to concerns over battery degradation and the cost of replacement batteries, etc. In South Korea, scientists are tackling one of the biggest fears around EVs, which is of course battery fires, and they've created a fire-resistant battery using a triple-layer solid polymer electrolyte. This thing is safe, it's efficient, and it's exactly the sort of kind of innovation that we need to win over skeptics when it comes to EVs. Having said that, trade wars aren't going to help. Europe, for example, has imposed a 50% tariff on Chinese cars, I believe, and the US is going 100%. And in response, China's Ministry of Commerce has proposed export restrictions on battery processing technology and critical minerals such as lithium and gallium. The ministry then also added battery cathode technology to its list. Battery cathode technology to its list of controlled exports. So, I mean, it's not just the cars. Many of the components that you need to make EVs also do come from China. And if they go through with stuff like this, then Western car makers could face serious disruptions. I mean, how do you make an EV without batteries, right? Hi guys, I've been writing. This is my first book, a novel, an all-out action thriller, and this one is a collection of 13 stories I've written over the course of 2 decades. The Ulysses Files and The Quantum Races by BC Guy are out now on Amazon.com. Now, touching on something else, It's pretty cold out there at the moment. Too cold for me, I'll tell you that much. Let's just talk a little bit about this report from What Car, which showed that cold weather can dramatically reduce battery efficiency, cutting the range by as much as 40%, losing between 80 and 130 miles of official ranges from the batteries, depending on obviously the overall range of that battery. Now, this isn't just inconvenient. This is potentially a deal breaker for a lot of people, especially when you look at how temperatures can plunge all of a sudden over the winter period. And it's not just about range. Charging times can also increase in the colder temperatures. Add to that the fact that the UK charging infrastructure is still lagging behind, and you've got a recipe for frustration there. So until these problems are solved, we can't really expect private buyers to fully embrace EVs, no matter how many government mandates are thrown at them. But like I said, the technology is changing rapidly, and they're finding solutions and answers to all of these problems. So, stay tuned, keep abreast of what's happening, because at some point, things could be working out for you. For example, again, having said all that stuff about the charging infrastructure, there is some good news. So ZapMap, the UK's leading EV charging point mapping service, has reported record growth in public charging infrastructure in the UK in 2024. Over 20,000 new charge points were installed, bringing the total to nearly 74,000. And that's a 38% increase compared to the previous year, 2023. Ultra rapid chargers, which are the 150 kilowatt chargers, they saw the biggest jump. They were up 84%. And that's what you want, really, because you want fast charging, right? And the number of charging hubs, so places where you have 6 or more rapid chargers, that they also doubled in numbers. So that's also a good thing. Charging is therefore becoming faster and more convenient, with hubs popping up everywhere, from motorway service areas to retail parks and even farm shops. Let's not forget destination chargers. So more than 12,000 new ones were added in 2024, making it easier to top up while, for example, you go and shop. So it's not perfect, and on-street charging is still more heavily concentrated in the London area, leaving other areas underserved. And whilst there is progress apparently in Wales and the Northwest, Northern Ireland, for example, continues to lag behind. The government's Levy, L-E-V-I program aims to address these gaps, but we'll stay abreast of that and let you know how things are going. So what does the future hold for EVs? Well, the growth obviously in infrastructure is promising, but reliability obviously with some of these chargers is a bit of a concern, as I've experienced myself. ZapMap's data shows that 61% of EV drivers think public charging has improved. So that's a good thing, but reliability issues are a sticking point. And then there's the technology, such as we've already talked about, the fire-resistant batteries, the ultra-durable single crystal electrodes, solid-state batteries that are coming possibly as soon as the end of this year, maybe. All of this means that EVs, or the EVs of tomorrow, I should say, could be safer, cheaper, longer lasting, with way more range and faster charging, as well as being more accessible and affordable. And, if these breakthroughs come through into the market soon, they will potentially be the game changer that the EV industry has been waiting for. Having said that, for the UK to hit these ambitious targets, we're still going to need more than just this tech. Policymakers have got to look at clarity, not just for manufacturers to be able for them to develop affordable options, but also for consumers to understand their own buying plans, because people don't just buy a car every year. They buy a car 3 years, or they may put it off, For example, all this stuff that I'm telling you now about the fact that, by the end of next year, we could have solid state batteries, we could have, better infrastructure. Some of you might be thinking, oh, wait, I was going to buy an EV, but you know what? I might keep my car for another year and then wait until the things have got better. So whilst this is all good news that this technology is happening, but at the same time, since we know that it's coming, but it's not here yet, it could, in effect, actually put people off and go, well, you know what? I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to hold and let things get better, and then I'll move across. But having said that, manufacturers are introducing more and more new and more exciting electric cars fast. So they're all coming on stream, they're coming on stream quickly, and there's going to be a lot more of them coming out this year as well. And of course, wherever I can, I will bring you reviews of those cars. You can check that out. And of course, I do have a playlist of just EV reviews also on this channel, which you can also find. So where does all of this leave us then? Well, the EV revolution is definitely happening, but it's kind of stuttering along a little bit, let's be honest. And the UK's ZEV mandate, while it's ambitious, But without policy consistency, better infrastructure and cheaper cars, we're really just spinning our wheels fast but not actually going anywhere. Meanwhile, globally, the tech race is heating up. Countries like China and South Korea are setting the pace. And in terms of EV sales and EV usage are pretty much going to be outpacing the UK, that's for sure, and many other countries as well. I mean, even places like the Middle East, I've got to say, even they are, I mean, I cover EVs for the Middle East as well, and I think that the growth adoption there is probably going to accelerate at a faster rate than here very, very soon. And then that will actually prove that it doesn't actually need legislation or incentivization to do that. It just needs, well, the reality is that, well, I mean, you tell me, what do you think? I mean, what's your take, for example, on Labour's decision to play around with that 2030, 2035 deadline again? Is that just a waste of time? Why are they bothering to do that? And do you think that this sort of kind of forced transition is the right way forward? But maybe, you know, like I always say, the fact is that the cars and infrastructure, the EVs themselves and the infrastructure should just be made easier, more affordable, and improved in such a way that people will look at these things and just go, well, yeah, the EV just fits into my lifestyle better now. Because if people find that, if they find they can afford it, they find they can work with it and live with it and it works for them, then they'll just automatically migrate to electric cars because of one simple reason, because they're better. Not because they're being told to do so or because they're being forced to do so. Anyway, love to hear your opinions. Do that in the comment section, but also make sure you hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, all the rest of it. You know the routine. See you in the next video. Shout out time, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, if you enjoy my content, why not get involved? Buy me a coffee. You can do that at either of these links. Or if you're watching on YouTube, buy me a thanks or take out a membership. It all helps. It really does.